All the characters in this story are over 18 years old. It has been more than 25 years since I last visited my hometown. 25 years, 5 months, and 12 days, to be exact. I left a broken man at the age of 26. It was the day after I found out that my wife, with whom I had lived for 3 years, was pregnant with her first child. Not mine, but hers and her boss's. When she told me she was pregnant, I immediately realized that it wasn't mine, even though she didn't really try to hide it. We were young and broke. The economy was difficult, so I got a short-term job on a river barge that plied up and down the Mississippi. It was a lot of money for a young man, but it required me to be away from 6 to 8 weeks. It turned out to be 9. We both decided that the breakup was worth it, because in those 2 months I would have earned more than in 4 at my previous job. We were young and in love. We could handle it. My wife managed to hold out for about 2 weeks before she started making love to her boss, David Hollister. He owned an insurance company, and she was one of 3 administrative assistants. As it turned out, she was the third one he used. He also had very good connections in our small town. So even when she came face to face with him, he just grinned. "What are you going to do? Debbie, are you going to try to ruin me? Will you sue me? I'm not married. The local judge is my brother-in-law, and you don't have 2 cents to hire a lawyer." He gave her a $1,000 severance package and fired her the next day. By the time I returned to town 2 weeks later, she was working as a waitress at a local diner on the morning shift. When she told me this story, there was so much remorse in it that it was touching. She apologized to herself for 15 minutes and then insisted that we use my newfound wealth of $12,500 to sue the bastard. "Tom, we can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I was just lonely, blah, blah, blah." She continued incoherently, while I stood stoically in silence. Her admission that it didn't mean anything hinted that she had made love to him about 24 times in my absence. I think she was genuinely shocked when she paused, and I laughed bitterly in her face. Turning away, I spent the next hour silently washing a couple of batches of laundry, then packed my things and left for good. Cell phones were a luxury in the late 90s, so she had no real way to track me down. I never saw or heard from her again. Yes, I was angry and offended, humiliated and broken. I would have loved to come up with a way to burn both the fool and the bastard, but as a young man with very little experience, I had no idea how or what to do with it. My parents are dead. I had a sister in Chicago, so no connections kept me in beautiful Hannibal, Missouri. I did another barge ride, bought a used Ford F-150 pickup truck, and headed west. Over the next 2 decades, I worked my way up. As a result, I worked as an accountant for a small company in Denver for 3 years, during which time I earned a degree in finance. Since I was single, or at least living single, I had plenty of time to study and attend classes. So I got my degree in just over 2 years. I had no idea if Debbie would divorce me. I think she got divorced, but I never found out for sure, with a few letters in front of my name and a few dollars in my pocket. I continued to move west, this time settling in Bend, Oregon. I didn't know anyone there, but I did some research and it seemed like a great place to reboot. Golf and mountain biking in summer, skiing in winter were perfect for me. I was also convinced that there was no serious migration from Hannibal to Bend, so I could really start my life over. I opened a store as a small investment broker, and 10 years later I had 3 junior partners and a couple of administrative support staff. I had almost $200,000 a year, and my world was developing just fine. I made good friends and went on dates as often as I wanted to. Once the experience of Debbie's betrayal was still in the back of my mind, I never thought about getting married. I never told my story in full when colleagues asked me why I wasn't interested in my wife and children. I just shrugged my shoulders and said something like, "Not for me." Over the years, I've really thought about Deb from time to time. It was impossible not to think. We dated for 2 years and were married for 3. For most of those 5 years, I thought I was with the woman I was going to spend the rest of my life with. It was a big shock to me when I found out that she had slept with her boss and was carrying his illegitimate child. I didn't want these painful memories to harden me, so I worked to focus on the best in the world and do everything in my power to be a good and generous person towards others. So, despite the fact that I'm doing well and I'm leaving the past in the past, I'm currently on a Delta flight from Portland to St. Louis and then on a jump to Hannibal. Why? Well, as it turns out, I have a long lost uncle on my mother's side who died and left me a small inheritance. Somehow his lawyer tracked me down and bent. We discussed this over the phone, and although there was an option to just let him manage everything remotely, I decided why not return to the old manor for the last time. So, at the age of 51 and a completely different person, I set off on a journey along the path of memories. I'm a bit of a miser, but since I was going to inherit about $40,000, I decided to fly. First class. When I got settled, I found myself sitting next to a charming young woman who looked to be in her mid-20s. Her name was Tabitha, and she was visiting friends in Bended. The trip was a gift from her mom for her 25th birthday. By the time we were over in Nebraska, we were talking like old friends. Her mother was single when Tabitha was born, but married when her daughter was about 2 years old, to a teacher at a local high school. Unfortunately, he molested a couple of underage schoolgirls, and as a result was not only fired, but also went to prison. When Tabitha was 12, her mother remarried, this time to a local businessman. They lived in a nice house while she was in high school. Then she went to school in Missouri. 6 years ago, her mom caught hubby with his secretary, and that ended marriage number 2. At that moment, her mother decided to stay single. As we sipped wine and chatted, she went on to explain that she had earned her accounting degree and worked in St. Louis. She saw her mom at least once a month on weekends. It was clear that she loved her mom, but also thought she was a little crazy. Obviously, her mom didn't know much about men, and her mom's experience didn't help. Tabitha learned how to be in a loving and stable relationship. While we were talking, it seemed to me that there was something in her eyes that intrigued me, but I couldn't figure out what it was, so I just missed it. She asked me a few questions about my past, and I told her the whole story, except for my early marriage and breakup. I just never wanted to talk about it with anyone, especially with a young woman about half my age whom I just met on the plane. She seemed pleased with what I was sharing and wasn't too curious. By the time we were approaching Kansas City, and it was the last hour of the flight, I also realized that young Tabitha had some problems with her father. She only had a couple of glasses of wine, but she snuggled up to me when we were talking. More than was appropriate, and it was clear that she was flirting. When she asked about the absence of an engagement ring, it was as if she was asking if I might be interested in her. To be honest, I liked the young woman who was flirting with me. I'm fit and moderately sociable, but what kind of 25-year-old would be interested in a guy who is old enough to be her father, right? Tabitha was now openly touching my hand, and she mentioned that she still had a couple of days before returning to work. She asked if I would accompany her on a trip to Hannibal. She could surprise her mom and visit her, taking a little time to show me how the old hometown has changed. One of my favorite sayings is, I may be a freak, but I'm not a fool. When we landed, I bought Tabitha a ticket from St. Louis to Hannibal. I got her a seat next to me on the flight. There were no first-class seats on this small plane, but the flight lasted only 40 minutes. As soon as the plane took off, the lights in the cabin were dimmed. By the time we were in the air, it was late evening and dark. It was at this moment that Tabitha reached out and kissed me. The kiss didn't smolder, but it was hot. Tabitha smiled and purred softly in my ear. Oh my God, Dad has a serious problem. He needs help. I'll take good care of you as soon as we land. I took her hand and whispered, if you continue to behave badly, I will have to punish you. When we arrived, young lady, I felt the heat radiating from her as she whispered back. Of course, I hope so. We landed in 20 minutes. I rented a very nice VRBO overlooking the Mississippi River near the city. It was too late to call her mom, and neither of us was in the mood to leave. Tabitha stayed the night at my place, and we decided that she would talk to her mom tomorrow. While I was with the lawyer, We both agreed that my meeting with her mom was not on the agenda. Tabitha did not think that her mother would be completely furious when she saw that her daughter decided to quickly have an affair with a man much older than her. But she knew it was better to be restrained. We went in, and a minute later I had Tabitha pinned against the wall, one hand firmly holding her wrists above her head. I assumed she probably had about 34s, and they were perfect. She broke off the kiss and demanded that I give her time to take a shower. We were on the road for almost 7 hours, so I had to agree that it was a good idea. I offered to rub her back, but she gave me an evil grin and said I needed to be patient while she prepares to make Daddy happy. Who the hell was this young vixen? And would I be able to get through the night with her? I let her use the bathroom in the master bedroom as there was a deep tub. I took a shower in the guest bedroom. Tabitha did not disappoint. She leaned against the door frame and spoke in her best little girl voice. Dad, I've been very, very naughty. What did you do, baby? I thought my head was going to explode. Well, that's very naughty, Tabitha. What should Dad do to you? She walked towards me, swaying seductively as she spoke. Bad girls should be spanked, Daddy, sliding into my lap. With my left hand, I grabbed her by her short blonde hair, holding her with my forearm. Slap, oh, slap, slap, slap. The next three quickly followed each other. I owe you. Oh, Daddy, I'm so sorry that I was a teasing cheater. Please, Daddy, let me be a good girl and make it up to you. Slap, 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 a few hard punches. How are you going to make it up to me, baby? Dirty cheaters need to be put in their place. I growled, barely restraining myself from knocking her down on the bed and using her. Right here and now. Please, Daddy, she said. She felt my grip loosen. We took a break, quenched our thirst. When we woke up, we made love in the shower before getting dressed and going to breakfast. It was Saturday, and she knew her mom wouldn't be at work, so she decided to call her after breakfast. Eric Hodges, the lawyer representing my uncle's estate, agreed to meet with me on Saturday at 10 a.m. Since our case will only take about an hour and he will be paid $5,000 for closing the inheritance. Tabitha and I agreed to meet later for drinks and dinner. She informed her mom that she was going to meet a guy, but did not give her any indication of our situation. She named a restaurant where we could meet and suggested that I try to book a table as it would be crowded. Then we will return home for the night, and in the morning I will go back to the airport, and she will continue to visit her mother. I told her I'd buy her a ticket back to St. Louis, but she thought Mom would want to take Monday off and take her home. We had a plan. As we were leaving, Tabitha reached out and kissed me gently on the lips. I can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy, she whispered. Damn it, I thought. It's a good thing it was only for the weekend. Otherwise, I might never have returned to Bend. I used the app to find Hodges' office. It was located in the center of a shopping/restaurant district in the city center. I found a parking spot right around the corner and entered his office at 10 a.m. Sharp! He was waiting for me, beaming with smiles and handshakes. We chatted about life for a few short minutes. I told him that I lived here many years ago when he asked about my family history. I didn't go into any details about my past beyond what was necessary. When we got down to business, everything turned out to be relatively simple. My uncles will allow us to avoid many formalities. Hodges took my driver's license and made several copies for his filing cabinet. Then he read the will out loud. When we completed our business, he handed me a check for $40,765. After one or two last pleasantries, I walked out the door and headed back to my car. Turning the corner, I saw Tabitha a block away with an elderly woman who must have been her mother. They were talking and giggling, not paying attention to anyone around. So they didn't notice me. I froze. I was looking at my ex-wife, Debbie. I hadn't seen her in 25 years, and she looked older, but I would have recognized her anywhere. It suddenly dawned on me why Tabitha's eyes had caught my attention. They looked like her mother's eyes. They crossed the street about half a block away from me, still unaware of my presence, and entered a clothing boutique. Damn it, I used my ex-wife's daughter. All the emotions I experienced many years ago came flooding back to me. I was covered in cold sweat and my hands were shaking. The fool who betrayed my deepest love, who robbed me of the joy of living together with. A real partner was in the fucking clothing store across the street, completely unaware of my presence. The pain was intense, and suddenly, out of the blue, I started laughing softly. I remembered all those times when I was puzzling over how to burn this fool. A year after landing in Bend, I decided to forget about it. I knew that I would never have a chance to balance the scales. Whatever happens to the cheating fool, it will happen without me. I wasn't going to let her betrayal completely destroy me. I may be deeply hurt, but I'll be fine, even if I had to give up any idea of getting even. The more I thought about it, the more I laughed. A few people on the street were probably wondering what was so damn funny. As I leaned against my car, catching my breath, chuckling, I realized that my laughter wasn't from relief. It was ominous. It dawned on me that I wasn't going to be chivalrous or kind of Debbie. Yes, I wasn't going to wake up sleeping dogs earlier. But now I'm going to enjoy the situation. Perhaps a more mature man would have reacted differently. A really good guy would probably decide that enough water had flowed and leave the past. In the past. Not me. I realized that I wanted a little revenge, and that was my moment. I didn't want to hurt Tabitha in the process, but maybe it can't be avoided. I'll try not to be cruel to her. It's not her fault. However, I was going to enjoy inflicting a little pain on my ex. I crossed the street and waited about 4 houses away from the clothing store. When they came out, I walked towards them. The next 5 minutes would never have made it into a Hallmark movie, but oh my God, it was fun. Tabitha, hi, Tabitha, I shouted, waving my hand. I saw that she looked up, a little embarrassed. We agreed that I didn't need to meet her mom. There was a mixture of surprise and mild alarm on her face. At first, Debbie looked at me the way anyone would look at a stranger who was clearly a friend of her daughter. As I closed the gap, smiling, Debbie's curiosity turned to confusion, recognition, and shock. All very quickly. Her hand flew to her mouth as she exclaimed, "Oh my God, Tom." Now it was Tabitha's turn to be embarrassed. "Mom, do you know him?" Before she could intervene, I spoke up. "Hi, Debbie, it's been a while." "Oh, it was so nice." "Tom, what are you doing here? I mean, why are you here and how do you know my daughter?" "Mom, do you know Tom?" "Tom, do you know my mom? How is this possible? What the hell is going on?" They were both puzzled. "Well, ladies, let me try to explain. Tabitha, I'll start with you. 5 minutes ago, I had no idea that my cheating, lying ex-wife was your mom. We didn't discuss this on the plane last night, but I was married here many, many years ago. Debbie, please stop me if you want to add anything." "No? Okay, I'll continue. You see, Tabitha, your mother was my first and only true love. We were young and broke, but we were in love, trying to make ends meet. I got a job on a river barge and was away for about 9 weeks. Before I left, we agreed that it would be hard, but we were in love with each other. And we will succeed. Every day on that barge for 2 months, all I thought about was my Debbie and how to get back to her. I was so excited when I got my paycheck and went home. We could really start our life together. Imagine my surprise when my loving, caring wife, who promised me her loyalty, told me that she was pregnant with an illegitimate child. While we were talking, I realized that she only waited about 2 weeks before making love to her boss, your daddy David Hollister. At these words, both women gasped. "Oops," I continued. "Debbie, have you ever told your daughter about her real father?" "Well, it's a pity. Perhaps that's why she has problems with her dad, which definitely show up when she makes love." I thought Debbie was going to faint. "Anyway, baby, your mom ruined me and our future in a few weeks by making love to her boss. In the end, he gave her $1,000 to leave and keep her mouth shut, which she obviously didn't do. I left the city emotionally bankrupt, and it took me almost 5 years to get back on my feet and start rebuilding my life. So this should answer your question. Now, Debbie, I'll answer you. I returned to the city because I had an uncle. He died and left me a small inheritance. I decided to return and see my hometown for the last time, completing my inheritance. I had no idea you were still living here, and I wasn't going to try to find you. Why should I want to reunite with a selfish fool who didn't give a damn about me and my love? Anyway, on the plane, I was sitting next to a beautiful young woman who told me her name was Tabitha. We chatted over a few glasses of wine and enjoyed getting to know each other. She never told me your name, and I never had the slightest idea who her mother was. However, as I said, we had a great time and really enjoyed each other. Again, I think part of this may be due to the fact that she is still looking for a loving daddy. So, we flew to Hannibal in the evening, and she joined me for the night. I mean, it was really epic. I don't remember you making love with such brilliance and enthusiasm. I'm not sure how many times we've made love, but no less than 8. By the way, do you know how much your little girl loves to be used? Tabitha was crimson red, and now she was clearly angry. Debbie was depressed, and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I'm almost done. I looked back at Tabitha. Tabitha, I'm sorry that you're hurting and you're angry at this moment, and I don't blame you. But you have no idea what real pain is. It turns out that I betrayed you a little bit. I could see your mother turn around and leave. But I'm just not that good of a guy, and a lot of that is down to that fool you call Mom. I know that I will never talk about it again, and I have no animosity towards you. I hope you have a good life, and if you ever find yourself and been needing a friend, I'll be there for you. There are no obligations. You're a wonderful young woman, and I'm sorry that you got involved in this. Nevertheless, I would love to have dinner with you this evening without expecting anything physical. Tabitha's face softened a little. Debbie, your tears and pain have a therapeutic effect on me. I assumed that I would never have a chance to show you how much pain you caused me. In a million years, I couldn't have made a plan like this. But now that I'm here, I want you to realize I can see the horror in your eyes. Now you understand at least a little bit what you did to me. I can see it in your face, and I know it hurts like hell. Your little girl is a wonderful young woman, and she's damn good in bed. I hope that the image of how I repeatedly used it last night will be imprinted in your head for the rest of your days. Goodbye. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders, hearing Debbie sobbing. Later that day, my phone rang. Daddy, are you going to meet me for dinner anyway? I was very naughty, shouting at my mother.